So the first type of meditation I wanted to start with today was a simple seated meditation. When most people think of meditation, they think of sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is not the only type of meditation, but it's the one we're going to start with today. So in the seated meditation, personally, I like to do it on the floor. I've got a yoga bolster that I sit on. I like my hips raised up a bit. And I actually have one of those blocks. They're also a yoga block that they use to lift up your hips.
Yeah.
And I actually use that to put the weight of my hands on so that I've got my shoulders up a bit and my arms open. But sitting, I'm going to demonstrate for today because we're sitting on the seat. So normally what I do is when I go to meditate, I like to put a bit of effort in. So I don't like to be so comfortable because for me, it's not getting the most out of my practice because it is something I'm intentionalizing to do, and I don't want to fall asleep while I do it. I don't want to miss the opportunity. So by sitting up a bit straight, not if I'm on a chair, I don't lean on the back of a chair. I don't lean on the back of a couch. I don't curl up. I actually sit on the edge and lean my body forward a bit. So David, you can correct me if there's any posture things here.
Looks good so far.
Okay.
So neutral spine.
Neutral spine.
Core is engaged.
Core is inside, yep. Yeah, so that's the thing with meditation is there is a bit of physical effort.
Yeah.
And that also helps that I am putting my intention, and this is an important thing to do. It is worth my physical energy to do this. And so that's where I start. I make sure my feet are grounded on the floor and I can feel them flat, or the parts that can touch the floor. Yeah. And then hands are just nicely relaxed. Sometimes I notice if my pants are too tight and I might undo the top button. So just check how your belly feels. So I know David's been teaching you exercises on breathing and belly breathing. So I personally breathe from my belly. So that's why I'm conscious of where my stomach is when I start. So once I've got a feeling of where I am, and I kind of just wriggle out any little bits that might be there till I get to some level of comfort within my effort. And then I either close my eyes or just lightly gaze down. Personally, at this time, I feel like closing my eyes. So during this demonstration, I'm going to close my eyes. And all we're doing is when you settle, is just bringing your awareness to your breath. And what we're trying to find is just where is your breath? Is your breath shallow? Just let it be shallow. Is your breath deep? And just let it be deep. We're just connecting to what your breath might be doing in this moment. And can you just observe your breath doing what it's doing without you overriding it, without you breathing for it? See if you can find your resting breath. To be honest, I am breaking the meditation at the moment, but in my first meditation retreat, it actually took me 3 full days of meditating 13, 14 hours a day to realize on the 4th day that I was actually control breathing the entire 3 days because I was that connected from my breath. I'd never in my life connected to my breath ever before. So I just wanted to say, if you are sitting there and you found it difficult to find your breath, another thing you can do is put your hand on your abdomen here, and then just see if you can feel the rising and falling of your abdomen against your hand. That's another way just to give you a point of contact to connect with that breath. And this type of meditation is not about changing anything. And the one huge thing with meditation, it's not about judgment. So we try and notice any judgments that we have, but we bring a big amount of compassion for ourselves. And that statement that I brought up earlier, that I am here learning, that meditation is not about arriving at a meditation practice. It is a practice in the fact that every time you spend a moment, every time you spend a minute to meditate, you are meditating. You are doing it. It's a practice.
Yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned about the breath, it is extremely hard if you're not aware of your breath. We teach people how to breathe in person, and it's hard sometimes, even with you laying on the ground and poking different parts. It's extremely hard, but once you get it, you'll be excited, and you'll be like, oh wow, and then it'll be your new autopilot. Most people we're breathing fight or flight mode, like through our chest all day long, and then the only other option as you breathe is up through here, and then this is tight, and you're like, my neck hurts, my head hurts, my everything hurts. So by meditating, you're actually de-stressing and actually engaging your core. If you found an action where you're if you took your fingers and found your hip bones and moved in about an inch, and then every breath you take, you'll feel that kind of tighten up.
Yeah.
So if we could teach you just how to breathe correctly, and you're engaging your core all day long, far better than if I teach you how to do a plank.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing. It's so amazing, yeah. That's a really good point about the breathing and you being there with people and still having it hard. And I just really felt to share that with you all, that I don't want you to feel any level of sadness if you can't find your breath, or any level of defeat or anything. And it's a process, and as I said, it took me 3 days, and that's why I felt like I needed to share that with you all, that 3 days of actually intentionally breathing, because not knowing how to know my breath. And I can't remember what happened in the 4th day, but I was like, had this breath, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was not me. That was not my conscious me overriding my body. Because when you sleep, your breathing is one of those funny things where you can take over. So you can control your breathing, but it's also involuntary. So it's voluntary and involuntary. And so that can sometimes get in the way, because the voluntary part is the head side of us. And the involuntary part is our instinctive side. And I was very in my head all the time. So that was a huge shift for me, just to really feel my body breathing instinctually. And now for me, that's what I call is my home. So in the past, I used to get lost a lot in my day. I still sometimes do. But now I have a home, which is what I've developed, which is a connection to my breath. That at any time in the bus, driving, walking, anywhere where I'm feeling overwhelmed or a bit lost, that feeling, all I need to do is just come back to my breath, where it is at that moment. And maybe out and about it's way up here. And in the beginning, it's about just noticing, where is your breath in this moment? And then halfway through my meditation, I might find my shoulders are up, and then I'm like, okay, I've noticed that my shoulders are up, and I'm consciously going to make a decision to put them down, because actually now that I have awareness of this is not how I want to be meditating. I want to be meditating like this. So first of all, it starts with where you are. And then second, you always have an option to move your posture, to change or do whatever you like, as long as it's a conscious choice on your part.
And I like that you're teaching that it does take time, and then eventually it will be your home and your autopilot that you can go to all the time, because you definitely need to know how to breathe in this kind of way. Because even in your workouts, if you want the workouts to get better and better, even if I teach you core strength, like stacking the ribs on top of the hips, that's fine, and you created a nice cylinder for yourself. But imagine now that cylinder is like a can drink again, but now you fill that can drink with cement, which is the pressure from your breath. then you can lift anything, you can do anything with it super strong without you hurting your back or hurting anything, because that's your base, that's your home, and forever, hopefully, you'll that'll be your new place.
Yeah. Exactly. And when you've created that, this is the other thing I love, is like the neuroplasticity, the fact that we can reprogram our brain at any time. And once we set a habit in, like the cement in there, we can create new pathways in our brain that never used to think like that. Like meditation for us may have been 1,000,000 miles away. It may have not been accessible for us, or may have just not been something that ever interested us or had access to the information. So by getting new information in and by learning a new technique, we've actually can change the neuro pathways in our brain to develop a new habit. And that's the amazing thing about the brain. And I love neuroplasticity and the research that's coming out, that we can literally reprogram our brains at any time with whatever we want.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And in reprogramming the brain, every time you do a workout, it's basically a meditative workout. Every time I go to the gym, even if I'm lifting a weight, lots of times you'll see me and my eyes will be closed and I'm kind of like feeling my breath, I'm feeling the blood go through the muscles, and I'm just witnessing all that. And I find that I can work out more efficiently and get the results way faster than I ever used to be able to, just because of a different way of thinking versus so I get to do this. This is fun, it's enjoyable, versus I have to do this and it's painful and it's terrible. So there's a complete change.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing with our minds what they're capable of. It's really amazing. So with that meditation practice, that's the first one. So my homework for you, if you so wish or choose to do, and there's no pressure to do anything you don't want to do, but if you would like to do the homework, I would suggest just sitting down, like I suggested, either in a chair or a sofa or on the floor, whatever you can find that's comfortable for you. Think about the little bit of effort. Maybe set your timer, maybe even start at 1 minute and see how you go for 1 minute. See if you can find where your resting breath lies. If in the finding process you haven't found it after the minute, that's okay. You can say the saying, I am here learning and I just spent 1 minute meditating.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's amazing. Good job.
Excellent.
So then, or the next thing is, maybe you could set your timer for 5 minutes, and maybe you're going to try for 5 minutes to see if you can find your resting breath. And maybe you've already found your resting breath. Maybe you have the ability already to feel that, and that's awesome. So maybe sit with your resting breath and see if you can sit with it for a few minutes. When we've found the resting breath, what I've noticed is that then you might become aware of different sensations in the body. Or actually, what might happen is trying to find the breath or finding the breath, you're probably going to notice other sensations. Like, for example, I'm noticing these pants are a little bit tight, and I am noticing that my jeans is pushing in a little bit into my stomach. So while I'm meditating, I'm also aware that that is happening there, and then I just bring my awareness back to my breath again. Or I might notice some tension in my forehead up here. So while I'm meditating, I'm just noticing tension, and then I come back to my breath. And the thing with meditation, it's not about trying to change anything that's happening. So it's not about emptying your mind. It's about being aware, thinking, thought came up, wherever possible. If you can not follow the thought down the rabbit hole. Yeah. To be honest, I've done that countless times, so I don't want you to ever feel bad about doing that. Sometimes it will be 3 minutes have gone by and I'm like, oops, I totally forgot about my breath. And I came back to the breath, and that's absolutely happens. That's totally a common experience for many, many people. Yeah. And the process is, as soon as you notice that you've gone away from your breath, you just come back to this breath in this moment. Because actually everything that's behind is past, and we only have this moment now. So if you've got this breath, amazing, you're in the moment, you're doing it, you're meditating. Yeah. So thinking, if thoughts come up during your meditation, if you want to put a word to it, you can either just say thinking, or you can say planning if you realize that you're planning, or you can say thinking about the past. Sometimes for me, my brain is very active, and if I say to it rehearsing, if I say to it, and it's actually rehearsing, like it might be rerunning the videos in my head, like yesterday's meditation.
Right.
So, and then I know, I'm like, oh brain, I see you. I see you're rehearsing for tomorrow's meditation video.
Yeah.
I know what you're doing. And then for me, my brain kind of settles down because it knows, like, okay, she's on this. She knows that I'm rehearsing and I'm coming back to my breath. So that's what works for me. And everyone's super unique, and just try out what works for you. Maybe like a blanket thinking might help you come back to your breath quicker, or maybe saying what is actually the process in your brain. Like sometimes for me, I'm reliving an event, or rehashing, I would say, rehashing an event that happened and playing it out. So then I would say, okay, reliving past event. And then that's easier for me to come back.
Yeah.
Some people I found, when they say that, it takes them too much into the detail. So they prefer just one word, like thinking. Like, okay, brain now wants me to think. And then come back to the breath. Oh, shoot, sharp shooting pain down my leg.
Yeah.
Now that can be a tricky one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they've been so bad for me that I've actually jumped up in a meditation practice and then had to sit down again, and I'm not sure why these sensations come up, and because I checked my seating position and I was like, nothing there. So sometimes some weird sensations can come up, and maybe they happened all the time, but I just wasn't aware of them because I wasn't focusing on them. So if any sensations, itching comes up for me a lot, tingling, itching a lot. So if a sensation comes up, it's just about noticing itching, tingling, pain, wherever you can, and it's just acknowledging, okay, I see body, that part is in pain, I see that, and then coming back to your breath.
Like you said, the main thing is just kind of witnessing and noticing that these things happen, and for me that happens lots too. It's like, oh, as soon as I do that, oh, my head's itchy for some reason. Why wasn't it itchy before I started this? But it's like, yeah, you're just more aware.
Yeah.
Maybe you're, like you said, it was always itchy.
Yes.
And the cool part is, like, even I'm like, is it actually itchy, or am I just, every time I do this, it's itchy? And then focus on the breathing, and after if I can come back to the breathing, then I'm like, oh, weird, it's not itchy anymore. I didn't scratch it.
Yeah, and that's a really amazing thing, that you notice with sensations. If you don't react, like for example, if there's an itch, automatically you want to itch it, and that's what it's there for. But I've experimented, and that's part of meditation, and as well is about experimenting. If I don't itch that itch, what happens?
Yeah.
And this part of meditation is about taking us out of a reactive state of mind, and out of reacting into like an observing state of mind. Because often it's in the reaction that we create the most struggles and sorrows for ourselves.
Right.
So this practice is actually set up to help us observe what is happening without reaction.
Right.
So I'm not saying if you've got a pain or anything, no, don't move. Do move, but if you can experiment with something that you're small, that you're willing to try, like for example an itch, then or maybe pins and needles in your foot, or a little bit of numbness. I'm not talking about sitting for hours, I'm saying like a minute.
Right.
So it's nothing, and just experiment what happens.
Right.
And in my experience, the itching rises to the point where I think that it's gonna explode.
Yeah.
And it never does, and then it goes down. Or I might notice a little like tingling in my knee, and what happens, it comes up and I'm like, oh, I've noticed tingling in my knee, and I'm just observing it, and then it goes away. So sometimes pains or discomforts may take our focus so far away from our breath, and we can't get back to the breath. And that's okay. Is if we just stay with whatever's present with us, we are still meditating. It's still a form of meditation.
Yeah.
And notice and experiment, if you stay with that sensation, what happens to it.
Right.
And then when you do feel you do have the opportunity, then try and come back to the breath.
Yeah. It sounds easy. It's a skill.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's a challenging. We're not brought up from these beautiful kids that have this opportunity since like one, I don't even know if they go before, but they're very, very small, and they are exposed to this type of practice from very, very young. So as my experience was as an adult, I came into learning how to meditate. So for me, I was a very go, do this, a million things on the go at once, never a minute to sit down.
Right.
Lists and lists of things to check off, and more lists added to the end of those lists. So if anyone had said sitting down, and that would have felt to me counterproductive.
Yeah.
Would have felt like I was going backwards. In actual fact, it did the opposite. It launched me like so much more further than any of my lists could have taken me. Any of my stress and my worry could have taken me. And also, and it's way more enjoyable.
Yeah.
My life's way more enjoyable, way more connection with people, way more connection with myself, way more fulfilling.
And I think most people will realize that and feel it themselves. Like I myself, same thing. I like to be insanely productive and accomplish as much as I physically can in a day, and tons of lists. Now I'm just way more organized with everything, and everything is quality and with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm more true to myself. So if I had that massive list, and the old me maybe could believe that I could conquer all these 40 items in one day. The new me knows, okay, well, I can only actually do these 5, and the rest of the list gets prioritized to different days and times when I actually know that I can actually do it.
Exactly.
And then you're efficient. And then versus overwhelmed with a massive list.
Exactly. And you overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
And in turn, you actually overwhelm everyone else around you. Okay, so homework for everyone, if you choose to participate in the homework, is to find a seated position wherever you feel most comfortable. Use a bit of effort, like what we showed earlier in the video. Set your timer for whatever amount of time you feel called at that time, or the time that you have available to you, and see if you can experiment with seeing where your resting breath might be.
Right.
See if you can notice whether you are breathing or whether that's your involuntary body breathing. And to do that, feel free to put the hand just on your abdomen here as a point of contact that might help draw you in. So the object is to try and find your resting breath. And you have as much time as you need to do this. So no pressure to find it in the first one. The first time you sit down with us, maybe you've been meditating before, and maybe that's already second nature to you, and great. Use that opportunity to bring that into your own regular meditation practice. Journal with us if you don't mind, and keep those thoughts noted down. Sometimes it's really nice to look back and see progress of where we've come from, or just the experiences of what it is like to start doing something intentional every day. If you can do it every day, that would be amazing. Feel free to comment, post under this video. Let us know what worked for you, what didn't work, what you were excited about, what you're not so excited about, and we would love to hear your experience.
Have fun.